has hate speech become so intrinsically a part of our politics? Why is hate speech flourishing with impunity? And the biggest question, why is there no action from the state? The Supreme Court of India today put the lens on hate speech in a series of stinging remarks, questioning the depths to which public discourse has plummeted in this country and holding up the state for its impotence. The bench of Justice K.M. Joseph and Justice B.V. Nagaratna remembered the speeches of Atal Bihari Vajpayee and Nehru and lamented the fringe-making speeches today. They said the country's dignity is diminished every time remarks like "Go to Pakistan" are made. They said mixing politics with religion is dangerous for democracy. Most importantly was the attack on the state. The Supreme Court said the state has become impotent, powerless, and does not act in time. So what is the use of the state? So what's the context to these observations, and why is the Supreme Court saying this today? Here's the background. In 2018, the Supreme Court issued a set of guidelines to states on a series of measures to curb hate speeches. In 2022, the Supreme Court reiterated that the state, that means the police and other authorities, part of the executive, should take suo motu cognizance of hate speech and take action. Directions were issued to the three states of Uttarakhand, UP and Delhi. It was made clear that not taking action would amount to contempt of court. Now, a bunch of petitioners, including one Shaheen Abdullah, have come back to court saying that states are in fact not acting on the Supreme Court guidelines. Hate speech is flourishing and hence this is contempt. The Supreme Court's observations were in the context of this petition. The hearing is going on and the next hearing will be on 24th April. So it's important to remember that right now these are just observations. So the hearing, of course, will continue. But the question remains, can the courts step in to curb hate speeches if they've become such a big part of our public discourse? How can religion and politics be segregated at all? And at this juncture, and where will this hate speech lead us? To speak on this, I'm joined today by Vishnu Jain, lawyer in the Supreme Court, and he's also pleaded himself in this case. Yashwant Deshmukh, founder and chief editor of See Voter. Tehseen Poonawalla, political analyst and also one of the early petitioners in the hate speech case. In fact, it was his petition in 2016, among others, which has led to a response from the Supreme Court. Sanjay Hegde, senior advocate, also with me on the show. Welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for joining us today on the show. Tehseen, let me begin with your comments, since, in a sense, your petition has set the ball rolling for what we're seeing today. If indeed your petition started in 2016 and in 2023, the Supreme Court is saying that hate speech has only become worse and worse. What does that tell us?
Good evening, Tamanna. Thank you so much for having me on the show. And Sanjay, who's sitting here, actually represented us in that particular case. So what we did in front of the Honorable Supreme Court in 2016 is we'd gone for mob violence, and we wanted the Supreme Court to issue directions on mob violence. And one of the reasons for mob violence was hate speech that was made with impunity. So we gave the Honorable Supreme Court a draft law called Masuka, Manav Suraksha Kanun. Sanjay had drafted it. And the Supreme Court asked the union government to pass this law that curbs hate speeches and mob violence. What happened then is stunning. The union government refused to pass this law to curb hate speech. The Supreme Court, of course, gave directions on how to tackle hate speech. Amit Shah ji, as Home Minister, got up in Parliament and said, we will not pass any such law. And states that passed the law, states like Rajasthan, West Bengal, Jharkhand, the governor has still not signed it. So the question to be asked is, and I bow before the Supreme Court because it's correct, where politics and hate speech are going hand in hand. Politics and religion are going hand in hand. And if you were to just ask your viewers, which political parties, benefit political parties, or two extremist ideologies that seem poles apart are actually extremely close, like the ends of the horseshoe. So both of them spread hate and politically benefit from the divide in society. So political parties that benefit from hate are encouraging it. and therefore there is no will to act upon hate speech by the state. Can I give you one personal example if you can give me 10 seconds more?
Go ahead.
And I'm not making this up. It's not funny. I'm actually not making that up. It's a tragedy. Pragya Thakur, a BJP MP, made a terrible hate speech in Karnataka. I, as the petitioner, spoke to the superintendent of police, asking him to file a suo moto FIR against Pragya Thakur as directed by the most honorable Supreme Court in my case. The SP refuses point blank. He then refuses to allow me to file an FIR, and his reason is that he will not allow me to file an FIR because for my digital signature, I need to come personally to Karnataka for a digital signature which is approved by the government. This is how law enforcement agencies are protecting lawmakers indulging in hate speech in absolute contempt of the Supreme Court. And I cannot even make this up.
So you are saying that hate speech is prevalent, it's there in society. Vishnu Jain is also with us. Vishnu Jain also had his point of view and presented it in court today. And Mr. Jain, you know, we were keen to have your first-hand response because from what I read, it seemed like you were saying, yes, there is hate speech. You agree there is hate speech. But you want the court to notice that hate speech is not just from one side on one particular community, it's everywhere. I want to ask you, Mr. Jain, that at the end of the day, isn't the problem that hate speech has become part of our public discourse? Rather than what about your hate speech versus my hate speech?
See, Tamanna, the very good evening to you, and the point which I am making before the Supreme Court and what I am trying to say before you is this. I, as a lawyer and as an advocate on record in the Supreme Court, I have said specifically in the court, and it is recorded in the order, that I stand for the cause that there should be a total eradication of hate speech from the society. So now the situation is this: after making that statement, after making that submission before the Honorable Court, now the situation is this, that there are certain set of petitioners before the Supreme Court, and the record of the Supreme Court is filled with certain instances of hate speech by the members of the Muslim community against the members of the Hindu community. So the point is this, and against those instances, the actions and directions are being taken up. When we all know that there is IPC in place, we all know that CRPC is in place. If someone has made a hate speech, there are remedial measures under the IPC and the CRPC. A person can go to the police station, he can go and approach the magistrate. But then the petitioner goes on to say before the Supreme Court that the nudge of the Supreme Court, the directions from the Supreme Court are required in the matter in issue, because it will have a overall cascading effect on the entire society. And in this entire exercise, Mr. Shaheen Abdullah continuously points out instances of hate speeches from the members of the Hindu community. So I joined the baton. I said that whatever Mr. Shaheen Abdullah is saying is correct, but it is an incomplete truth. To understand the holistic view of the matter, there are various instances, and I would like to point out that there are, I have pointed out 8 instances in the country, just as an example, in Bevar, in Azamgarh, in Jaunpur, in Jodhpur, in Khandwa, in Hyderabad, in Amethi, and in Somnath, where people have come in obscene numbers and have said,
one minute, Vishnu Jain, Vishnu Jain, एक minute, before you go ahead, 1 minute, Vishnu Jain, I request you not to repeat any hate speech on this show. As a policy, as an editorial policy, I have not shown any examples of hate speech on screen from either side. I have not taken quotes. I don't want to repeat hate speech on my platform. So please allow me that. I understand the issue. My viewers also understand the issue, and whoever wants to know what hate speech is going on is well aware. We're all exposed to hate speech. So I will request not just you, I will request Tehseen, I will request Sanjay Hegde, I will request everyone. We are not repeating hate speech on this show. I am not offering a platform for hate speech to be echoed and repeated. We are talking about the issue at hand. With that in mind, Mr. Jain, please continue your point, but I hope you will adhere to this request of mine. We are not using this platform to propagate hate speech of any kind.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
No, definitely. The point is this, the point which I'm trying to say is this, that there are many instances of hate speech and there are many instances of hate crime against which no action has been taken. For example, what happened in Kashmir, no action has been taken till date. The Kashmiri Pandits have not got justice. For example, what happened post Nupur Sharma, no action has been taken against those people.
So have you moved court? No, so I
Yes.
don't understand the context. So you go to court and you have
Yes,
your day
I
in
filed,
court.
yes.
What does it have to do with this petition?
What has to do with this petition? I filed my petition before the Honorable Supreme Court. The Supreme Court had heard the matter today, and the Supreme Court had said that they will list that they'll hear my petition on 28th of April. I mentioned my petition before the Supreme Court, saying that I have already filed an IA with various instances of hate speech. Please take action against these instances.
Okay. Now, Sanjay Hegde, let me bring you in. I know Tehseen, you want to come in, but wait, let me just bring everyone in. Now, Sanjay Hegde, what it's seeming like, and you know why this is important, because this my hate speech versus your hate speech is also becoming the bedrock of public discourse when we are trying to address hate speech. If someone comes and says, why has X community, been targeted in a rally where some kind of a leader or a public figure has said X, Y, Z, isn't that hate speech? Pat comes the reply, but what about this? The other community is saying something about Y community. So how is this going to solve the inherent problem of hate speech? At the end of the day, is this a law and order issue? Is it a religious issue? Or is it a political issue?
It's all three. It's all three. Primarily, if the politicians of the day say that we will not indulge in it, things will stop. Primarily, if the people of the day say we will not vote for politicians who do this, then it will stop. Because ultimately what the politician wants is the people's vote. And it is simply because people pay attention to hate speech, that it is our side versus their side. That's where the problem lies. And in fact, the judges of the court, more than going against hate speech, was speaking of the India that we grew up in, where constitutional fraternity was prized, where in our schools we used to take that pledge, India is my country, all Indians are brothers and sisters. So in a sense, the judges were saying, why can't we citizens take a pledge that we will not get into this, nor will we encourage any such hate speech? Please do not give hate speech attention. Anybody who tries to claim attention by resorting to hate speech, specifically on your WhatsApp groups and all that, please shut that down as fast as possible. We have a duty as citizens to cherish the ideas of the freedom struggle, where we all work together.
My question and issue, and something, Mr. Hegde, which is also in court, is that this cannot be a PSA. Stop hate speech cannot be a public service announcement appealing to the better side of citizens. There is a rule of law in this land.
Absolutely.
You cannot tell people be kind and don't commit crime. Now, the reason I wanted Yashwant Deshmukh on this show today, Yashwant, is because the court has very clearly linked religion, politics, and the mix of that with the occurrence of hate speech. There is a widely held perception that the more inflammatory the speech, the bigger the divide in society, the more votes will come flowing down. Does data actually prove that happens? Has hate speech become a standard arsenal for any politician or any political party in this country today?
Well, Tamanna, on one hand, I would say that people at large don't really appreciate hate speech. People at large don't. let's face it. I mean, no sane person can ever accept in a civil society. Even though going beyond the law, many of my friends have been arguing with me that the freedom of expression includes the freedom to offend, but I disagree with them. In a civil way, that it doesn't really include freedom of or freedom to offend. And now that there is also a law for a certain angle of hate speech and everything. So to answer your question, to say that people vote for some set of leaders who are indulged in hate speech, and it is something which people should look into and they are to be blamed, I would say that is only one part of the story. While solving this problem, we have to deeply appreciate why exactly people end up voting for such people. There could be some reasons behind them. People are not always blind and stupid, you know. So what I'm simply trying to say that while I'm absolutely in favor of curbing hate speech, but we need to have a much more nuanced way of looking at my hate speech versus their hate speech kind of. You have just summed it so correctly in that way. And that madness has to stop somewhere.
But Yashwant, it's not just my hate speech versus your hate speech.
I would like to understand from Sanjay on one thing.
If I may just add, if I may just add one point, the court says today the root cause is religion mixing with politics. Religion has become a huge plank of our politics today, where parties are projecting themselves as defenders of faith, and everything else they do is a plus. That's where the hate speech is emanating from. Can you segregate the two?
With all due respect with the court, I mean, one thing which I disagree over here, that it hasn't become today. It has been going on all along, and if you understand, anybody appreciate the history of it, this country got partitioned on the base of religion, Tamanna. The entire 75 years of our existence post partition, to think of that there would be deep fault lines and they would just vanish just like that would be very childish to understand. The fault lines will remain, and in politics, people will be there to exploit those fault lines. They would try there to the hill to exploit those fault lines. But if the laws are there, my question to Sanjay and other legal luminaries here is, court, we have seen so many times taken suo motu cognizance of so many things out there. Why? I mean, I understand that these lawmakers, when they are saying something on the floor of the house, that goes outside the purview of the orbit of the court. But when these people make hate speech in the public, outside the house, why can't the court take a suo motu recognize of such thing and just go after these people, couple of them, make an example of it, rather than just giving sermon that why it is happening and observations. If I am not wrong, Sanjay can correct me. All these observations are good, nice to hear, can make headlines, but at the end of the day, they remain observations.
Right.
How
absolutely.
exactly can court do something really harsh about it? That is something to be seen, and that is what the public is also looking for.
Is the ball in the court of the courts? And I think Yashwant, Sanjay Hegde will bear this out. Observations, will only go that far. We have to see what is in a final order at the end of the day. Even as journalists, we sometimes wait before reporting on observations. But these are an important set of comments they've made. So we've made an exception. Yes, Sanjay Hegde, should the court step in and make an example of a couple of people? And can they really?
Well, Tamanna, I'm a bit handicapped here. You see, there's another set of matters with regard to hate speech, where the court has asked for suggestions from me. So I would not want to say anything in this on your program. So I'm handicapped. Okay. the only thing as far as observations are concerned is that sometimes observations are made in the hope that people pick up on those observations, that matters need not proceed towards judgment. See, ultimately, what is the problem here? What was the context of today's hearing? Today's hearing was with regard to one state where there was a continued campaign currently, which was brought to the court's notice. And the court has even now not asked a specific official, say like a Home Secretary or a Director General of Police, to put in its response. All that it has said is that let the state respond. They asked the Additional Solicitor General, who was appearing for the state, please put in a response to all this, and we will consider it on the next date, on the 28th. And Vishnu had a application also, which the learned Solicitor General took up on and almost wanted to state Vishnu's point. And they said that we will consider that also on the 28th. Yes, courts have this very difficult job. They are supposed to be sentinels on the qui vive in zealous defense of people's fundamental rights. They did tell one of the lawyers that, look, when you come to court, if there is a set of people who keep saying things about you or about lawyers from that part of the country, for instance, like that, how would you like it? And this kind of demonization of any set of people acts against the requirement of fraternity, which is assured to us in the Constitution's preamble itself.
Right.
Liberty, equality, fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual. Constitutions are meant to be interpreted by the courts. Just 1 minute. Constitutions are meant to be interpreted by the courts, but they have to be lived by the people. And that is what the court was essentially telling people, that take a pledge, that you will not indulge in hate speech, and that by implication that you would not support hate speech.
Yeah, but the fact is that these big processions and rallies we're talking about are peopled by lakhs and lakhs of individuals. Those clips do go viral. That is the reality. Yes, Yashwant, you wanted to come in very quickly.
No, just very quickly that, I really appreciate what Sanjay Bhai is saying. That's fine. But at the end of the day, for all practical purpose, if it just ends up being a moral gyan, a moral teaching class for the people, then I'm sorry, it is not going to make any big changes in the problem the way we are going to tackle the problem. I think that if the court is serious about it, then they should make some example of it and they do something suo moto. And it's
like Sanjay said, he cannot.
Tamanna court has gone into areas which legislative is now challenging that, okay, it's not your area. So court is not just sitting pretty. It's not that they haven't ventured into areas where they are.
So fair point. What can the courts do here? What can the courts do here? Sanjay Hegde said he's constrained because he's actually involved. So I respect that, Sanjay Hegde, and when that comes to light, maybe we'll have you back to talk about it. Yes, Tehseen, you want to come in. Is it the courts who have to fix this, or is it the police? And if everyone is hand in glove in terms of a political establishment, if everyone is enjoying the fruits of hate speech, no one is going to want to act against it. It's a formula that works at the end of the day. And politicians want to win elections.
So a larger, slightly more intellectual or constitutional point will be that the court will not be able to act only on hate speech by itself unless police reforms are carried out, which is another judgment of the Honorable Supreme Court. Sanjay and Yashwant will know about this, and so will Vishnu, because that judgment has been pending. until police reforms don't happen. Because right now, the police force is completely subservient to the government of the day. I am telling you, a superintendent of police tells me, I cannot register your FIR because I need you to come down to Karnataka to do a digital signature. That's the extent they will go to protect those in power, because we said MP from a political party that was in governance in the state of Karnataka, Pragya Thakur. Now let's go to the second step, which is further. I actually appreciate Vishnu. He came up with a bunch of petitions. He said, look, the hate speech was also made in these particular cases. Why aren't you looking up to that? And Vishnu, as an advocate, has absolute right to do that. What I found astounding is, with respect to the SG are putting Vishnu's case forward, which, I mean, the SG can do, but the SG should be asking himself, who's in government? I mean, Tamanna, I promise you, Yashwant Bhai, Sanjay ji, the day I am Home Minister of the country, I will act on my own. I will not go to a court to act. I mean, Vishnu ji, 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes. Just 2 minutes, just 2 minutes.
It has not transpired.
2 minutes. 2 minutes, Vishnu ji, counter me, frankly.
Yes.
In one of the cases that you put up before the Supreme Court, Ilyas Sharafuddin, I have filed a complaint against that gentleman. Why has the Delhi police not acted upon him? Because political parties benefit from polarization. Tamanna, this polarization is not one-sided. It's both sides. And it benefits two sides of the coin. They can only be hate on one side if there's hate on the other side. Therefore, political parties not just encourage hate speech on their side, they are also encouraging hate speech on the
Let me get Vishnu to respond. 1 minute. Let me get Vishnu to respond. Yes, Vishnu. Yes, Mr. Jain.
See, Tamanna, the point is, it's not as simple as Tehseen is saying that the hearing has transpired. There are much more things to be said, but I would like to say that during the course of the hearing, while making his submissions on the genuineness of this PIL petitioner Shaheen Abdullah, SG had wanted to say before the Supreme Court that there are many instances which Mr. Vishnu Jain has also pointed out. That then he asked the Honorable Court that please ask the petitioner to take up these instances also, for which the petitioner was not ready. So it is in this context that his statement was made. Point number one. Tehseen bhai, I would like to tell you that it was not the case that SG was arguing my matter. I was arguing my matter. No, because the point is that there are... No, I'm saying that there are much more things...
1 minute, Tehseen, let him finish. Let him finish, Tehseen, please.
Sure.
No, that's what I'm saying. Sorry. That's what I'm saying. I want the state to take it up. That's why I filed that IA. When the Supreme Court is issuing directions for particular set of instances, so far as Maharashtra is concerned, I have certain issues so far as other states are also concerned. But that was not to be heard, and in that context, that statement and that dialogue has transpired. And I would like to refrain myself today, Tamanna, by making various things which have transpired in the court, because it's a very sub judice matter, sensitive matter, which is being heard in the Supreme Court, as my senior Mr. Hegde has said. So I would like to refrain. But I am just saying, Tehseen bhai, that please, before making anything against the SG, try to understand the entire hearing and not quote something from somewhere. It is a very serious and sensitive issue. There are a lot of things which have happened which I cannot speak on the channel. There are a lot of things. Just a minute. Just a minute. I am refraining myself. Yes.
Just 10 seconds.
Okay,
Vishnu bhai, 10 seconds. Kudos to you. I'm saying kudos to you. But imagine the SG is asking the other petitioner to take up your cases. Why can't the SG say the state will act? That is my problem. I am not getting into
it has not happened like this. My senior Sanjay... No. My senior Mr. Hegde was present. I was present in the court. It has not happened the way you are saying it on this channel. And I would...
1 minute, Tehseen, 1 minute.
And I would refrain.
No. I understand that, Mr. Jain. I understand that, Mr. Jain. It's an ongoing case. It's a sub judice case. You are restraining. I think it's great that you have come here. You know, the fact that we are having, I think, a relatively very cool, very, sabhya debate on hate speech with all the key players is testimony that it can be done, that you can have a proper dialogue about issues with very disparate views. So I just want to point that out. The question, Mr. Vishnu Jain, and you're right, what is happening is that because we're seeing snippets, one line here, one line there on, some blog, people pick it up on social media. For example, a lot of things you have said have been picked up by some as saying they're anti-one community. It's or anti-Brahmin, for example, that has been trending. So I think what you have said should be heard by everyone on all sides. That there is a context to what happens in court. That's why it's important to go, like we say on the show, beyond the headline. But my question to you, Mr. Vishnu Jain, is there seems to be an implication that if Mr. Shaheen Abdullah has come to court on hate speech, then he will be only worried about hate speech against Muslims. And if Mr. Vishnu Jain has come to court on hate speech, he is only worried about hate speech against Hindus. Doesn't that also send out a very polarized message?
That's what I'm trying to say.
Hate speech is an issue for every citizen against any citizen.
No, not at all.
Why is that message not going out? Aren't you equally concerned about hate speech on all ends?
Tamanna started by saying that my statement before the Honorable Supreme Court was that I condemned all sorts of hate speech. Even if hate speech is given against my client, I'll stand against him. This I've said it on the before the Honorable Supreme Court. But the point here is this, and that's why I filed my petition before the Honorable Supreme Court, that there are certain set of individuals who are trying to show and project before the Supreme Court that they are bona fide PIL petitioners. And when they are saying that they are bona fide PIL petitioners, they are trying to give instances against a particular community. If Mr. Shaheen Abdullah would have done his job holistically, I wouldn't have approached the Supreme Court. But the point is, and it is in that context, the Honorable Solicitor General said that please don't entertain this and please ask Vishnu Jain's instances to be merged with the instances of Shaheen Abdullah and take action against everyone.
No, but why is it Shaheen Abdullah's job to also see your point of view? He is going to court with what's bothering him. Why has the responsibility of seeing every hate speech instance in this country fallen upon him? I'm not understanding the logic of that. He's come with his problem. You've gone with your problem.
Tamanna,
why should he also include your problem?
So I've gone with my problem.
Okay.
So that's what I'm saying. Mr. Shaheen Abdullah has gone with his problem against a particular community. Now I've also gone against with my problems to the Supreme Court. So then you can't say it is not a hate speech, one hate speech against another hate speech. If you are talking on a principle of law that there has to be a ban on hate speech, then you can't just single out certain instances that, oh, there is Dharm Sansad in Haridwar, oh, there is Dharm Sansad in Maharashtra, but you will not talk about any other hate speech which are made in obscene numbers, which are made in large numbers. You will only select a particular community and point out hate speeches.
Is there a selective, okay, Tehseen, is there a selective sort of an impression being made on hate speech?
Yes,
and is there equal inaction on all hate speech?
Yes, there is an impression being made. And again, that impression benefits the political parties on the extremes of the ideology. Your viewers are smart enough to understand which political parties benefit from this hate. For example, there's a political party, I don't want to get into the hate speech, that benefits and polarizes the side Vishnu Jain's gone aside. There's a mainstream political party in government that benefits from hate speeches on the other side. But the question is, why is there no action? One of the instances that Vishnu Jain Bhai has taken to the Honorable Supreme Court, I'm repeating, I have filed a complaint against that gentleman. I have filed a complaint, but Delhi police is not acting. Now, Delhi police is reporting to whom? Why are you allowing people to get away? Let me give another example. The OAC brothers repeatedly make hate speeches. I'm not going to the hate speech they make or their political parties. Why is the union government and BJP governments not acting against them? They don't act against them because to polarize, you require two sides. Tamanna, I can only argue with Sanjay Bhai or Yashwant Bhai if Yashwant Bhai or Sanjay Bhai choose to argue with me. Otherwise, there will be no argument. So for a hate speech, for an atmosphere of hate to prevail, you require another side to also do it. And therefore, there is tactic support from the government allowing hate speech even from the other side.
So the Supreme Court today, when they have talked about the state, they have talked about state governments as well. When they're saying our state government's impotent, Sanjay Hegde, Sanjay Hegde wanted to come in. Yes.
No, the point is that governments think that taking action on hate speech is optional. That is where the real issue lies. It is not optional. It is a constitutional imperative. There are, as Tehseen said, look, there are provisions in the law. There are people who are willing to file complaints. Then what is it that the government is doing sitting on its hands? Why does it need a Supreme Court judgment to take action? Why does it need contempt petitions to be filed in the Supreme Court? And that is exactly why the Supreme Court used those words that state governments seem to be impotent. In fact, at that point of time, I remembered Justice Barucha, who when he was told that I was then the standing counsel for Karnataka, when Veerappan's associates were to be released because Rajkumar had been kidnapped. He just looked at us and said, if you can't govern according to the rule of law, then quit. So to answer Yashwant's question, sometimes courts do make examples. They do not necessarily pass it in specific orders saying, throw this man out, cut off his head. But courts have a great role. They have powers. They may appear to be willing to strike but afraid to wound. But never ever doubt their commitment to enforcing the rule of law and defending the Constitution for everyone.
No, but Yashwant's question was, and I'll come back to you, Yashwant, on it, कि ये सब अच्छी बातें बोलकर होगा क्या at the end of the day? Yashwant, but it's the job of governments. It's the job of governments.
I get
we
it.
We are a year before the next general election. Why this discussion is also pertinent is because it's going to get uglier and more hateful.
Look, you see, everybody has got a right set of point, Tamanna. Tehseen's point is right on the money that, there are fault lines and politicians will try to exploit those fault lines for their political purpose. And these politicians are across the political spectrum, every hue and shade. I mean, I would say that because they need a yin for the yang. That's the horseshoe analogy which Tehseen gave. It is bang on. I understand that. But my only humble submission is, if the court of this country one fine morning decides that, okay, I want to be part of the decision-making process and decision-maker on how to appoint the Election Commission of India, then the same court can very well ask one SP to file that FIR which Tehseen was so desperately trying to get it filed. Make a good example of somebody like, if there are video evidence of Sadhvi Pragya making a hate speech, why can't the court take the suo motu cognizance of that? Ask the Election Commission of India that, okay, I convict this person and this person shall not be taken as a member of parliament. You should, do something about it, or simply direct the Election Commission of India to do away with the membership of that particular MLA, MP or minister or whomsoever it is. The thing is that I'm not a legal person. I don't know legal nitty-gritties. But when I, as a layman, as a common person, I see that one fine morning, any court wakes up and decides that I want to do this. They do it. They do it. But
it's not their job.
It's
not their job. It's not their job. It's the job of people we've elected.
It's not their job to select the Election Commissioner of India.
But then now we are going into another loop of whataboutery. We're going into another loop of whataboutery.
But what I'm simply trying to say, when there are problems and court takes a strong point, people appreciate.
Okay.
I will tell you that.
So are we going to come down? So are we going to have hate speech continuing unabated in this country till the courts step in? Because to quote the courts, the state is impotent. That's the word the courts have used. Is that point being proven if you're waiting for the courts to come in? That's the question.
No,
I need to wrap, but one last comment quickly from Sanjay Hegde. Quick one, please, Mr. Hegde.
No, quick answer to Yashwant. As far as the Election Commission is concerned,
No, that's
Parliament has not made a law. Since you asked that question.
That's a different debate. I just gave an example.
No. Because Parliament hasn't made a law, the Supreme Court has given guidelines. Now, having answered that, why doesn't the Supreme Court directly take action against Pragya? Because there is a process. Pragya has a right to be investigated, have a criminal trial, and then possibly be set aside. If the Supreme Court were to do it on its own, there would be no appeal. And every civilized system requires at least one appeal. So these are the constraints that the court acts on. So please,
That's the rule of law.
do not wait for courts to act. You as citizens have a duty to live the Constitution and the idea of fraternity.
Well, I hope the citizens watching this, I assume the citizens watching this are not those who believe in hate speech from anyone, against anyone. This is not what we want in our lives and in our public discourse. I want to really thank all of you for joining us today. This is one of those days where I think we've managed to unpack a very, very serious issue with some great insight. So thank you to all of you. Very short break. On the other side,